Most farmers don't waste money because they are careless. They waste money because they were taught a simplified story that no longer works in modern agriculture. The story is easy to remember, easy to repeat, and dangerously incomplete. It says fertilizer equals productivity. More fertilizer equals more yield. And NPK is treated like a magic formula instead of what it really is: a rough nutritional label with massive limitations. NPK stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. 3 essential nutrients, yes. But crops do not grow on acronyms. They grow in complex biological systems where chemistry, biology, physics, climate, and timing collide. Nitrogen drives vegetative growth, leaf expansion, chlorophyll production, and protein synthesis. Phosphorus supports root development, early vigor, and energy transfer inside the plant through ATP. Potassium regulates water movement, enzyme activation, stress tolerance, and grain or fruit quality. On paper, this sounds clean. In the field, it is chaos. Because plants do not absorb nutrients in isolation. Nitrogen uptake depends on soil moisture, temperature, microbial activity, and carbon availability. Phosphorus availability is controlled by pH, soil mineralogy, and fixation reactions that can lock it away for years. Potassium can exist in exchangeable, non-exchangeable, and mineral forms, each behaving differently under crop demand. Yet fertilizer programs are often built like recipes, copied year after year, applied on schedule, not on need. This is where the waste begins. When fertilizer is applied without understanding the soil's existing nutrient pool, without considering nutrient interactions, and without matching application timing to crop uptake curves, efficiency collapses. The plant does not absorb what is convenient for the farmer. It absorbs what is available, accessible, and biologically compatible at that exact moment. Everything else becomes loss. Loss to leaching, volatilization, fixation, runoff, or simple inactivity. This is not theory. This is measured reality across thousands of field trials worldwide. The uncomfortable truth is that fertilizer inefficiency is not a marginal problem. In many systems, less than 50% of applied nitrogen is recovered by the crop. Phosphorus efficiency can be even lower. That means half of the money spent never translates into yield. It sits in the soil profile, moves into water systems, or reacts into unavailable forms. Farmers are not under-fertilizing. They are mis-fertilizing. And the core reason is that NPK alone tells you almost nothing about how nutrients behave in real soil. Understanding that gap is the first step to stopping the bleed. The most expensive myth in agriculture is the belief that yield is limited primarily by nutrient quantity rather than nutrient efficiency. This belief pushes farmers toward higher rates instead of better decisions. The logic feels safe. If yields disappoint, the assumption is that something was missing, so the next season more fertilizer is applied as insurance. But insurance that never pays out is not insurance. It is waste. Crops follow nutrient uptake curves that are tightly linked to growth stages. Nitrogen demand spikes during rapid vegetative growth, not at planting alone. Phosphorus demand is highest early, but availability is governed by soil chemistry long before the seed touches the ground. Potassium demand increases during reproductive stages, especially in grain fill or fruit development. Applying nutrients outside these windows reduces uptake efficiency dramatically. Worse, excess nutrients can actively harm the system. Too much nitrogen promotes excessive vegetative growth, delays maturity, increases disease pressure, and weakens structural integrity, leading to lodging. Excess phosphorus interferes with micronutrient uptake, especially zinc and iron. High potassium levels can suppress magnesium and calcium absorption, creating hidden deficiencies that reduce yield quality even when yields look acceptable. This is where many farmers lose money silently. The crop grows, the field looks green, the harvest happens, but yield potential was capped by imbalance, not shortage. Fertilizer recommendations based on blanket rates ignore soil variability, crop history, residue management, and weather patterns. A sandy soil with low organic matter behaves nothing like a heavy clay with decades of nutrient accumulation. Yet the same NPK rate is often applied to both. That is not agronomy, that is habit. Modern agriculture generates massive amounts of data, but fertilizer decisions often lag decades behind. Soil organic matter, cation exchange capacity, pH buffering, microbial biomass, and nutrient stratification all influence fertilizer efficiency. Ignoring them guarantees loss. Precision agriculture tools exist to solve this problem, but they only work when paired with correct agronomic interpretation. Variable rate application without understanding nutrient dynamics is just automated waste. The goal is not to feed the soil blindly. The goal is to synchronize nutrient availability with plant demand while minimizing pathways of loss. That requires abandoning the idea that more fertilizer is safer. In reality, precision is safer. Efficiency is safer. Knowledge is cheaper than nitrogen. Soil testing is often presented as the solution, but misunderstood soil testing can still lead to waste. A soil test is not a prescription. It is a diagnostic snapshot. It tells you what nutrients are present, not how fast they will become available, how they interact, or how the plant will access them under specific weather conditions. Many farmers run soil tests and still waste money because they treat the results as static truth instead of dynamic context. Phosphorus is the clearest example. A soil test may show adequate or even high phosphorus levels, yet crops still respond to phosphorus fertilizer because placement, root access, and early season temperature limit uptake. Conversely, soils with high test values often receive more phosphorus simply because the fertilizer blend includes it by default. This is pure loss. Potassium behaves similarly. Exchangeable potassium may test sufficient, but compaction, moisture stress, or poor root development limit uptake. Adding more potassium does not fix structural or physical constraints. Nitrogen is even more complex. Standard soil tests struggle to predict nitrogen availability because nitrogen is mobile, biologically mediated, and weather dependent. Applying nitrogen without considering mineralization rates, residue carbon ratios, and rainfall patterns leads directly to leaching and volatilization. The smartest fertilizer programs start with soil testing but do not end there. They integrate tissue testing to confirm actual plant uptake during the season. They adjust rates based on yield goals that reflect realistic constraints, not optimism. They consider previous crops, manure history, and organic inputs as nutrient sources, not background noise. They use split applications to reduce loss risk and align supply with demand. They respect the soil as a living system, not a storage tank. Farmers who do this consistently apply less fertilizer and harvest more usable yield. That is not a contradiction. That is agronomy done correctly. The tragedy is that most fertilizer losses are preventable with information already available. The problem is not lack of tools. It is lack of systems thinking. Fertilizer waste accelerates when biology is ignored. Plants do not absorb nutrients directly from fertilizer granules. They absorb ions from soil solution, and in many cases, those ions are mediated by microbial activity. Nitrogen fixation, nitrification, mineralization, and immobilization are all biological processes. Phosphorus solubilization depends heavily on microbial exudates and root microbe interactions. Potassium release from mineral structures is influenced by biological weathering. When soils are compacted, acidic, low in organic matter, or biologically depleted, fertilizer efficiency collapses. Farmers then respond by applying more fertilizer, which further suppresses biology through salt stress and nutrient imbalance. This feedback loop is expensive and destructive. Regenerative practices are often framed as ideological, but their real value is economic. Cover crops increase nitrogen retention, improve phosphorus availability, and enhance potassium cycling. Organic matter improves cation exchange capacity, water holding, and microbial habitat, all of which increase nutrient efficiency. Reduced tillage preserves soil structure, reduces erosion losses, and stabilizes nutrient placement. None of this eliminates fertilizer use. It makes fertilizer work. The most profitable systems are not fertilizer heavy or fertilizer free. They are fertilizer efficient. This is where many operations miss the leverage point. Spending money on inputs without investing in system function guarantees diminishing returns. Fertilizer companies sell nutrients, they do not sell efficiency. That responsibility belongs to the farmer and the agronomist. Understanding that distinction is how money stops leaking out of the system. The future of profitable fertilization is not about chasing higher rates or newer products. It is about integration, integrated soil testing, tissue analysis, weather modeling, biological management, and precise application timing. Farmers who adopt this mindset stop asking how much fertilizer to apply and start asking how little they can apply without limiting yield. That shift changes everything. It reduces cost volatility, improves resilience to weather extremes, and protects long-term soil productivity. The uncomfortable reality is that many fertilizer programs are designed for convenience, not performance. Pre-blended NPK products simplify logistics but ignore field variability. Calendar-based applications simplify scheduling but ignore plant demand. Yield goals based on best-case scenarios inflate rates and inflate losses. Fixing this does not require radical change. It requires disciplined thinking. Measure before applying. Apply when needed. Adjust when conditions change. Treat soil as a system, not a surface. Farmers who do this consistently outperform their neighbors, not because they spend more, but because they waste less. Fertilizer is not cheap, and it will not get cheaper. The farmers who survive the next decade will not be the ones who apply the most nutrients. They will be the ones who understand them best. To understand why fertilizer waste persists even among experienced farmers, you need to look at how decisions are made under uncertainty. Agriculture operates in an environment where weather is unpredictable, markets fluctuate, and biological systems refuse to behave like spreadsheets. Faced with this uncertainty, many producers default to over-application as a risk management strategy. The thinking is simple: fertilizer is controllable, weather is not. But this logic collapses when fertilizer becomes the dominant source of inefficiency. Over-application does not hedge risk, it compounds it. Excess nitrogen increases sensitivity to drought by promoting shallow root systems. High salt concentrations from fertilizers reduce water uptake efficiency under heat stress. Nutrient imbalances amplify disease susceptibility, making crops more vulnerable precisely when conditions deteriorate. In other words, the strategy designed to reduce risk often increases it. This is why understanding nutrient response curves matters. Yield response to fertilizer follows a diminishing returns model. Initial applications produce large yield gains. Subsequent increments produce smaller gains until the curve flattens. Beyond that point, additional fertilizer produces no yield increase and may reduce net profit. Many farmers operate on the flat or declining portion of this curve without realizing it. They are paying for nutrients that deliver no economic return. The only way to escape this trap is to redefine success. Yield alone is not the metric. Marginal return per unit of nutrient is. Once that mental shift happens, fertilizer decisions become analytical instead of emotional. Another major source of waste comes from ignoring spatial variability within fields. Fields are not uniform, even when they look uniform from the cab. Soil texture, organic matter, drainage, compaction, and historical management create zones with radically different nutrient dynamics. Applying a single fertilizer rate across these zones guarantees inefficiency. Some areas receive too much, others too little, and the average result looks acceptable while hiding massive loss. Precision agriculture technologies were developed to address this, but technology without agronomy is just expensive hardware. Yield maps show where crops performed well or poorly, but they do not explain why. Soil maps show variability, but they do not predict plant response. Variable rate fertilizer prescriptions must be built on an understanding of limiting factors. If yield is limited by water, adding nutrients will not fix it. If yield is limited by compaction, potassium will not solve it. This is where many precision programs fail. They assume nutrients are always the limiting factor. In reality, nutrients are often secondary constraints. Correcting the wrong problem with more fertilizer is one of the fastest ways to waste money at scale. Effective variable rate strategies reduce total fertilizer use while increasing yield stability. They move nutrients to zones where response is real and reduce rates where response is unlikely. This is not about maximizing yield everywhere. It is about maximizing efficiency where it matters. Timing is the most underestimated variable in fertilizer efficiency. Nutrients applied too early or too late behave very differently than nutrients applied in sync with plant demand. Nitrogen applied months before peak uptake is exposed to leaching, denitrification, and volatilization. Phosphorus applied far from the root zone becomes chemically fixed before roots can access it. Potassium applied when soil moisture is limiting may never reach the root surface. Split applications exist for a reason. They reduce exposure time to loss pathways. They allow adjustment based on in-season conditions. They increase recovery efficiency dramatically. Yet many farmers avoid them due to logistical complexity or tradition. This avoidance is costly. Advances in application equipment, controlled release formulations, and real-time crop sensing have made timing optimization more accessible than ever. Still, adoption lags because the benefits are not always visible immediately. The losses, however, are always real. Nutrients lost early in the season cannot be recovered later. Precision in timing is not a luxury. It is a necessity in modern, high-cost input systems. Economic pressure will force a change in how fertilizer is managed, whether farmers prepare for it or not. Input costs are volatile, environmental regulations are tightening, and public scrutiny of nutrient losses is increasing. Systems that rely on brute force fertility will struggle under these conditions. Systems built on efficiency will adapt. This is not about ideology or compliance. It is about survival. Fertilizer waste reduces profit margins, increases exposure to regulation, and degrades soil over time. Efficient systems do the opposite. They improve profitability, resilience, and long-term productivity. The farms that succeed in the next decade will treat nutrients as strategic assets, not consumables. They will track nutrient flows, measure outcomes, and refine decisions continuously. This requires a different mindset, one that values data over habit and understanding over assumption. The core message is simple but uncomfortable. Most fertilizer waste is not caused by lack of effort or lack of investment. It is caused by oversimplification. NPK is a starting point, not a solution. Fertilizer is a tool, not insurance. Soil is a system, not a container. Farmers who internalize these truths stop chasing higher rates and start chasing higher efficiency. They apply fewer nutrients, but with greater precision. They see fertilizer as part of a larger agronomic strategy, not a standalone fix. This shift does not happen overnight, but it pays dividends every season. The question is not whether fertilizer waste exists. It is whether you continue paying for it or decide to eliminate it.